Sports Fantasy Football Live is presented by State Farm.
Happy holidays and welcome to week 16 here on Fantasy Football Live. It is the fantasy semifinals and we're here to help you shake up that holiday hangover and dominate your playoff matchup. As usual, we are all here by some Christmas miracle. I am Liz Loza. We have a very festive looking Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon also here, Tank Williams, and of course our betting analyst Minty Betts getting ready for 13 more games in week 16. Let's check in with everybody after a busy holiday weekend. Andy, my goodness, jingle bells are all around you, or snowflakes or something. How are you doing, and who are you hoping to find some holiday cheer in this week's slate?
Oh, I need a little something from Dawson Knox, and honestly, I can't wait to see what it looks like when Buffalo and New England play, and it doesn't take place in a windstorm with 60-mile-an-hour gusts. Mac Jones probably going to have to throw more than 3 times, but I need Dawson Knox to hold on to some of those balls that he couldn't quite manage to secure a few weeks ago.
Matt, what about you? Oh, that's a hat.
Yeah, it is a hat. Hey, the flaps even come down here. I could wear it like this too, but then I know I'm gonna be sweating like the rest of the show if I do that. But anyways, what I'm looking for here, look, this thing is a nightmare. My God. All right, I'm strapped in. I'm dialed in too. I'm dialed into a really bad flex decision I've got in one of my best dynasty teams. Got to win this week, and now with Mike Williams on the COVID list, I'm looking at, like, do I start Kadarius Toney? Do I go down the Duke Johnson route again? Probably can't do that. So I guess I'm looking for a Christmas miracle. I'm probably not going to find one. Tough
Yeah, well, it's not that hat that's making you sweat so much as your lineup, it sounds like. And I think we're all probably with you. Tank, nice Stanford sweater. What are you hoping for?
Well, if you're looking for some holiday cheer from me, you ain't gonna get it, because I'm a mean one, the Mr. Blinch. And I mean, I'm just here to tell you that the fantasy guys just hate all of us. Like, I have Travis Kelce in one lineup, and I'm playing against him in another one. Like, I have Austin Eckler in one lineup, and then I picked up Justin Jackson in another one. So I'm just here to tell you where if you feel like you can just go ahead and scoop somebody on the waiver wire and you can just plug them into your fantasy lineup and things are gonna be all hunky-dory, I'm that guy that's going to tell you that you'll be the one that plug in Jimmy G on a Thursday and watch him overthrow Juszczyk and only give you like 15 points when you're going against some studs in a semifinal matchup. So, yeah, fantasy hates you, and honestly, right now, I probably hate you too. No,
Way to bring the fantasy cheer, Tank. All right. Well, on that note, for me, it's let's go Drew Lock. I'm in a 14-team super flex. Kyler got me nearly 22 points last night, but I lost Taysom Hill to COVID, Teddy Bridgewater to concussion. So I'm standing Mizzou's finest like it's 2019, baby. Remember those before times? Oh, by the way, my opponent lost both Lamar and Tyler Huntley, so I'm going to need Davis Mills, no offense, as a Stanford grad, Tank, to be, well, Davis Mills. Minty, what surprises are we finding in the Sportsbook stocking this morning?
You know, nothing too crazy has happened at the Sportsbooks this morning. We have big 6-figure bets on the Raiders over the Broncos today, as well as the Rams over the Vikings. Also a very, very lopsided matchup, which I'll touch upon during the trending segment in just a few moments.
Well, believe it or not, even after Tank's soliloquy, we are here to help alleviate some of that semifinal pressure. So please send any and all questions to the hashtag AskFFL on Twitter, or drop one in the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can on the show. Plus, Scott Pianowski is still wearing his Santa hat. He's handing out candy canes and roster advice right there at the Yahoo Fantasy handle. All right, now let's turn our attention to the injury reports. Tank mentioned this. Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce did not clear COVID protocols and will not suit up this afternoon against Pittsburgh. After missing 2 games with an ankle injury, Adam Thielen is set to return for Minnesota. Patriots running back Damian Harris is also returning today against Buffalo. He torched the Bills for 111 yards back in Week 13. Finally, not the clarity we were hoping for. Washington is hopeful that running back Antonio Gibson won't be held out tonight against Dallas. Ian Rappaport reports he is a game-time decision with the toe injury. All right, that is the latest. I'm sure there'll be more. Now it's time to get into our first over-under. Matt, why don't you take us away?
I think Andy should do it. He looks the best here.
Do it. I'll take it. Sure. First over under, we're going to talk about Ronald Jones. When has he ever let you down? It's never happened. Literally never, ever happened. He's going to be filling in for Leonard Fournette this week. He's obviously injured. We're going to set an aggressive number here at 99.5 total yards. Listen, Jones hit this total 5 times last season when he had the primary role. Bucks, he's averaged 5 yards per carry over the last 2 years. Fournette himself had been hitting this number routinely. Jones, obviously not the most gifted receiver out there, but I think he can still get there. Carolina is the opponent today. They're only mid-pack against the run. No Evans, no Godwin. It sets up really well for Jones. When things set up well for Jones, he doesn't always come through, but I think he will this week. I am taking the over. Matt, do you agree?
Yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. We saw Ronald Jones without Leonard Fournette in 4 games last year, averaged almost 20 carries, ran for over 100 yards on average, and most importantly, like you mentioned, not the best receiver in the world, but still averaged 3 catches per game in those contests because, listen, when you play with Tom Brady, even if you're not out there on the passing downs, if you're in the backfield, you're going to get a few dump-offs here and there. I mean, look at Leonard Fournette, never a guy we thought was a pass catcher at all. This year, he is the most productive receiving back in the league, unbelievably. So, yeah, I do think we're, like you said, everybody's gone through their Ronald Jones phase, just like everybody's gone through, around my era, your, Screamo phase or whatever. We all had that in middle school. We can admit it. We can all admit we stand for Ronald Jones here and there. We're going to do it one more time to end this season.
Liz, do we have a sweep?
Well, you guys both mentioned how productive Jones was with Fournette out of the lineup, so I don't need to reiterate that. I also want to say, in terms of his ability as a pass catcher, he ain't worse than Keyshawn Vaughn, right? That's saying something. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 10-point favorites over the Panthers, so you have to imagine a good amount of volume here. He's a top 10 play for me in Week 16, and I, too, am going over.
Oh, you love to see widespread agreement in the truest holiday spirit. Okay, we're going to have more over-unders later in the show. Right now, let's send it to Tank for DFS stuff.
Holla! Happy holidays. It's time for our surprisingly great picks presented by State Farm. Now, my DFS value plays can fit in any budget, just like State Farm offers surprisingly great rates with coverage that meets your needs. Now, let's dig into the Sunday night matchup with the Washington football team traveling in the Jerry world to take on the Cowboys. Cowboys already locked up a playoff spot. Washington still fighting for one. And, isn't it about time for Dak Prescott to get back on track? We've been waiting for Dak to bounce back like crypto. And I think finally he has the remedy. He's going against the Washington pass defense that gives up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And I just feel like right now it's time, we just been waiting. We thought it'd be last week, and they still look kind of nasty on offense. But now I feel like there's enough motivation I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this segment where everything comes together. But on the flip side, on Washington, I'm going with Scary Terry McLaurin. Now, I will admit that Scary Terry's stats have been more scary than he has been as of late. But, he got knocked out of the game with a concussion. The quarterback play has been inconsistent because he really hasn't had a lot of quarterbacks to be there consistently because of COVID. But now he has Heineke back. He's back and he's healthy. Dallas Cowboys are friendly against wide receivers. I feel like they're going to have to target him heavily in order for the Washington football team to stay in this game, especially with a gippy Antonio Gibson. So I feel like McLaurin could be a nice play at $20. And finally, my stud of this game is going to be Amari Cooper. He didn't go with the T.O. route or the Keyshawn Johnson route, throw me the damn ball. Amari Cooper is actually one of those guys that is pretty pleasant. He said, I feel like I can help this team on third downs and in the red zone if you would give me the ball just a little bit more. I feel like that's why you pay me all that money, so maybe if you do that, I can help you. So he said in a way where it didn't offend Dak, it didn't offend Jerry, so I think they feed my boy today. So that's why Coop is going to be my stud today. Now, moving on to Monday Night Football, we have the Dolphins traveling to the Dome to visit the Saints prime time. And, hey, I'm going with the Saints defense. There's no way this defense shuts down TB12, Tommy Boy, the GOAT, on the road and comes back to the Dome on prime time with the rookie quarterback and lays an egg, right? I hope y'all don't do that to me. I'm from the crib. I'm 45 minutes away. If y'all made me look stank on national internet right now, we're going to have some problems. Now, on the flip side, I'm going with Jalen Waddle because I'm looking at it this way. He's about the only thing the Dolphins got. Lattimore is likely going to be on Devontae Parker because I think he matches up better with Parker if you look at the way he always matches up with Mike Evans, which means that Waddle in the slot should be able to eat like Chris Godwin, even though I do expect that Saints defense to play them pretty tough. And so that means my stud has to be, a lot of times you pair up a running back with the defense. Ian Book, I expect them to be really conservative with him, so what's that going to be? Checkdowns to Alvin Kamara. If they're going to hand the ball off, you know it's going to be Kamara. I'm not saying he's going to ball out and give you like 6 tubs like last Christmas, but he should be able to give you enough, hopefully, for the Saints to win and to make your fantasy rosters feel happy with glee and not with lumps of coal. So, whether you lace them up on Sundays or you're locking up your lineup at the last minute with us, State Farm offers surprisingly great rates on car insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Get a quote today.
All right, guys, welcome to the Sportsbook. Let's get into some trends today. Excuse me, dating back to 2003, double-digit road favorites are 49 and 60 against the spread, which means they've covered 45% of the time. 2 big road favorites today are the Bucks minus 10.5 versus the Panthers, and the Chargers minus 11 versus the Texans. So be cautious today with those big favorites. The most bet matchup this week, the Ravens versus the Bengals, and the most money and tickets are on the Bengals minus 7. This is by far the most lopsided game we're seeing. There's virtually nothing on the Ravens today, and no one wants to take a chance with them. So I am staying away from that one, FYI. And lastly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the most bet team to win the Super Bowl. No surprise there. Odds shifted from their opening number of 12-1 to plus 550. I'll be back in a bit with my best bets for week 16.
All right, let's get to our first check-in on social media this morning and answer some roster questions. Don't forget to send your questions to the hashtag AskFFL. Our first tweet comes from Leanne, and she has a PPR question. I don't think that matters, though, because it's about quarterbacks. Matt Ryan versus Detroit or Derek Carr versus Denver today? Tank, let's start with you. Are you feeling Matty Ice or the check-down King Carr?
I mean, honestly, I'm really not feeling either of these guys. I mean, but one thing I will say is that Denver defense has played pretty tough as of late. And Derek Carr, I have him in one fantasy lineup as well, and I hope he balls out, but am I looking forward to that? Hell no. So if I'm going to play anybody, it's going to be Matt Ryan. I feel like he has this connection with Kyle Pitts. He has this connection with Russell Gage. They're playing the Detroit Lions at home, and they're playing the Detroit Lions without Jared Goff. I'm not sure if that really swings the needle anyway, but hey, Matty Ice.
All right, sound logic there. Next question comes from Ray, and Ray wants to know if they should start Sony Michel at Minnesota or Zeke versus Washington. Matt, which of these 2 running backs would you prefer?
Yeah, it feels like the people are kind of down on Sony Michel. You know, Cam Akers gets activated this week off IR. I think they mostly just did him a solid by allowing him to accrue a year towards his pension. Shout out to you, Rams. That's nice and all. But at the same time, guy's probably not going to play. Definitely not going to play this week. Probably not going to play in the regular season. I feel like Sony Michel established himself as the 1A in this backfield last week. Obviously, things can rotate a little bit. Darrell Henderson's not going to completely go away, but coming off a pretty solid game against the Seahawks, another great matchup here against Minnesota Vikings defense. You know, as risky as it is, like this is a split backfield too in Dallas as well. The matchup is better for Sony Michel. The offensive ecosystem might even be a little bit better for Sony Michel right now. That's probably the way I would go down swinging with the Rams back this week.
All right, fair enough. Andy, this next tweet comes from Evan, and Evan has a wide receiver question. Should they start Antonio Brown coming off of that ankle/suspension issue at Carolina, or Deontay Johnson at Kansas City? Always good for double-digit targets, except last week, of course. Which of these 2 receivers would you prefer?
Oh, I wish I had these problems. I really do. I can't believe you can't start them both. They're both really strong plays this week. I got to go Deontay Johnson. I mean, in any sort of what is a healthy week for Deontay Johnson, actually? He always staggers off at some point, and he always returns, and he gets 12 or 14 targets. I'm chasing the workload here. I'm going Deontay Johnson. But again, Antonio Brown, a very strong start as well.
Okay, Tank, we're going back to you because it is a Falcons question, and you talked up Matt Ryan a little bit earlier. Pete wants to know if he should start Russell Gage versus the Lions, as we mentioned, or Ronald Jones versus Carolina. You heard Andy, me, and Matt all talk up Rojo in our first over-under. Which of these two players are you going to lean towards?
I think you make a pretty good point at the way that the Bucks use Leonard Fournette in the pass game, and so that's why I lean Ronald Jones. Obviously, he's going to be the lead back there, but I think he's going to get enough action in the pass game. They didn't say whether that was a PPR or not, but just say it's maybe a half-point PPR. Then I feel like he'll give you the edge. And also, the one thing that has me, I really love Gage, and we're going to talk about Gage a little bit later. But I feel like the game flow may not be ideal for him. I think that he thrives in situations where the Falcons have to put up a lot of points and compete with a team that's also scoring. I don't know if the Lions really give us that on the flip side today, so that's why I go with Ronald Jones.
That makes a lot of sense. We have one more tweet. It comes from James. And James, this is a good one. Matt, I'm going to send it to you. Tyler Boyd versus Baltimore, Tony Pollard versus Washington, or Joshua Palmer, noting that Jalen Guyton and Mike Williams are both on the COVID list at Houston. This is a flex question.
Yeah, Palmer's pretty tempting with those COVID issues, as you mentioned there, for the wide receiver room. Don't really think I'm going to Tyler Boyd here, despite the matchup being good against the Ravens. I think Boyd's big play from last week, I'm not going to call it fluky, but it was definitely unexpected, we put it that way, given how they've been using him. Also, too, nobody in the Bengals passing game's getting a lot of volume thrown their way. I think I probably still lean towards Pollard, though, who had a really good role the last game we saw the Cowboys. I do expect the Cowboys to go in there, even if it is mostly on the back of their defense. I expect them to win this game against Washington, kind of control the action against a team that's sort of limping to the finish there as the Washington football team. So given the other two options you got there, Palmer is enticing, but I think I will still go back to Tony Pollard. Remember, when we saw Josh Palmer have that big game, it was without Keenan Allen playing as that big slot receiver. This is a pretty different role for Palmer with no Mike Williams.
All right, there you have it. It is time for our first break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we return, we look at players who could be on the naughty list this week in Off Their Game.
B, I want the real B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those matters. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is the Bandwagon.
Yeah,
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect!
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
Always good times, good vibes around the holiday season. Well, not right now, because we've got to do our favorite segment here where we bring down your mood. We tell you all these players who are going to let you down this week, and it's Off Their Game, of course. Tank, why don't you get us started? Who is going to disappoint the people out there this week?
When I throw out this name, people probably won't be that surprised. Josh Jacobs. He's been one of those guys where, he flashed a whole lot, especially early on in his career before he got to the NFL, but it's always been a little bit of give and a lot of take, and I feel like it's going to be some take this week going against those Denver Broncos. Like I expected My man Joe Mixon the ball out against the Broncos last weekend. They put the smack down. And, I mean, I think the one good thing about Josh Jacobs is that he has actually looked healthier body-wise. But, man, his stats the past couple of weeks, man, he's been quiet as a church mouse. And so now going up against those Denver Broncos, like, he's not in a situation where you're going to bench Josh Jacobs. Like, let's be real. But I feel like if you put him in your lineup this week and you expecting something big to try to help you get that fantasy title, you're going to be cursing at your TV the way I was cursing at Jimmy G on Thursday night.
Hey, at least you threw a touchdown to Brandon Ayuk, am I right, Tank? Anyways, let's move on here, Andy. What high-end starter is going to high-key ruin somebody's week here in Week 16?
Yeah, listen, I fielded a bunch of questions about Darrell Henderson this week, and I just can't do it, right? He returned from injury, played 18 snaps, and handled 8 touches a week ago. Sony Michel in the same game, 48 snaps, 20 touches, and Michel was great. Like, Henderson has been fine this year. He doesn't have a 100-yard rushing game yet. Michel has one. It's a good matchup this week. It's Minnesota. It's not something that we should necessarily avoid. They allow 4.7 yards per carry. But Michel comes into this one with the hot hand. He's gained 323 yards over his last 3 games. I think he's the guy to play. You talked about it earlier, playing him over Zeke. I would do the same thing, and I would certainly play him over Darrell Henderson and send Henderson to the bench.
Yeah, that dynasty team I mentioned earlier, Sony Michel's like the best running back on that team right now. So I hope you're right, Andy. Let's fingers crossed on that one. All right, last guy I'll talk about here. And listen, I drafted this guy in a ton of leagues. Really hated it for most of the season. There was a little stretch there where I really liked playing Antonio Gibson. Don't think you're going to enjoy it tonight. If he even plays, of course, as Liz mentioned off the top, he's a game-time decision. Listen, Antonio Gibson playing less than 100%, that just sounds like Antonio Gibson playing here in 2021. So if he's out there, just don't know that he's a guy you can bank on. Last time we saw him, he did catch 6 of 7 targets against the Philadelphia Eagles on a COVID-moved game. However, he averaged fewer than 2 yards per carry. And this Washington offense right now, I just think the wheels are starting to fall off. Like, again, it's been Terry McLaurin and the preseason boys for most of the entire season. We're still basically in that spot, and now they go against a Dallas defense that is ranked #1 in EPA per play allowed. This unit right now in Dallas is absolutely hunting. I do not expect Gibson to get some of those red zone chances that kind of saved his week last week, if he even plays at all. Look, hey, by the way, speaking of playing, you thought you weren't going to see Austin Eckler on Sunday? Well, twist, you are actually going to see him, just not on the field, on our show.
We are very excited to welcome Bills tight end Dawson Knox to the show. Thanks for coming on, Dawson.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, man. Do you have any history with people in fantasy football? Do you play? Have you ever been associated with anything of it?
Yeah, so I'm actually in 2 leagues this year.
Yes,
nice.
Dawson.
Let's go.
I got you on my team that I'm playing against all my boys with on the Bills. Got a first-round bye thanks to you. You know, we've been rolling.
I got to give you some insight since you're coming on the show. We actually just talked about it because I'm on the COVID list this week. So you better go pick up Justin Jackson, who's my backup. And if he's not available, pick up Joshua Kelly. Or if there's a better option, obviously, in the running back spot. But definitely Justin Jackson.
Okay, that's good to know. Damn, I didn't know you were on the.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Yeah,
Good to know.
so.
Yeah, I'll be taking some moves.
What's your team name? What's the name of your fantasy team?
These nuts.
Oh, great.
D''S, you know, because name starts with D.
Yes.
I did KNUTZ, you know, like DK, my initials. I'm one of the more PG rated names in our league, so I'll keep it just to my name.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that you have Austin on your fantasy team. I have you on a lot of my fantasy teams. So something that you may not know is that you're the tight end 5 overall in fantasy. It's been working out very nicely for me. How does that make you feel?
Oh, let's go.
Having such an incredible year.
I'm glad I can be helping you out a little bit. But no, it's been a super fun year here. It's been very up and down for us. It's kind of crazy. You know, I mean, that's just how the NFL is. You can be riding high one week, next week, you know, lose a game that you feel like you were supposed to win. But it makes you realize everyone's good. You know, everyone has superstars on their team. Everyone gets paid. It's been a fun year so far.
Awesome. I definitely know about having a great quarterback, man. It makes playing offense so much more fun. Where it's like, man, we're rolling.
Yeah, I think I actually got Justin on my other team, so he's been killing it.
Oh yeah.
Dawson, you have 8 touchdowns on the season, which is really impressive considering you missed 2 weeks with a hand injury. You want to show everyone your gnarly hand, by the way?
Yeah, check it out.
Look at that.
Ignore the pinky. The pinky isn't really part of it. That's kind of jacked up too. But got 17 screws in here. Yeah, so it's not too pretty.
Dawson, can you talk to us about Knox socks?
It's been a pretty awesome little initiative we started this year. I've had a bunch of help with a company called 4 Bare Feet, but it's awesome because this company is making these cool like Bills themed socks. Some of them has like a cartoon me on there. Some of them has like handprints, the mascot. But basically $5 from every pair of socks that's purchased goes to the Punt Foundation, which is a charity I work with. They work with pediatric cancer patients.
That's great. That's great. I have a sock too. I'm just curious. Your cartoon figure on your sock. How is it? How is it? Does it look like you, or they do you dirty?
You know, I wasn't mad about it. Like I think it looks all right.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dawson. Happy holidays to you and your family, and good luck against New England this weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you guys for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Please beat them.
That's the goal.
Yeah, beat them. Let's go.
All right, now it's time to get into some flex questions from the hashtag #MakeYourPick at Yahoo Fantasy. Our first one comes from Brian. Brian needs to start 2 out of this group. It is PPR, CEH versus Pittsburgh, Terry McLaurin at Dallas, Justin Jackson at Houston, who we just talked about, or Austin just talked about, Ronald Jones at Carolina, who we talked about at the top of the show. Matt, you know, I think I'm going to lean towards the running backs for me in this choice. I have to believe that CEH, especially now that we've gotten the news that Travis Kelce is out, will start to be a focal point. Like, knowing that the Steelers' run defense has kind of collapsed over the last few games, can Andy Reid please just focus on the run and let CEH get some of it? So I think for me, I'm going Rojo and CEH, but are you in a different, are you thinking differently here?
I mean, I don't know how we can't play Justin Jackson after we just watched Austin Eckler tell us to play him. I mean, by the way, like what a segment. You got Austin Eckler telling us who his direct backup is. You got Dawson Knox, everybody out there like, why is he having some drop problems since he came back from the hand injury? He shows you the thing on, I mean, unbelievable. That was awesome. Anyways, I think we play Justin Jackson here, Liz. That's the way I would go. Great matchup against the Texans. The thing with CEH, and I'm with you, I actually like all 3 of these running backs here, but I would probably go, as weird as it is, like the waiver wire goofballs, Justin Jackson and Ronald Jones there. The problem with CEH is just, he's the guy, actually, I think of the 3, who has the biggest threat in his backfield there. With Darrell Williams, he's still going to catch some passes, everything like that. So I just feel like those other 2 guys, you can project them for more touches, even if the matchup's great for CEH.
I'm going to talk more about Justin Jackson a little bit later. I'm just worried about a potential setback in Joshua Kelly or Larry Roundtree getting the goal line look. So for me, although you're right, Darrell Williams is always like a fine flex. So one of those 3 running backs is the choice. Brian, we will let you choose whether Justin Jackson or CEH is your second one. Next question is from Marcin. Needs to flex 2 of CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Lockett, Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, or Rashad Penny. It is a half-point PPR. I'll let you pick this one up first.
Oh, man, yeah. These first 3 receivers, I think, are the ones I'm narrowing in on here. Look, Devonta Smith, you know, it's just very up and down. I'm not going to go back to the Rashad Penny thing, although this will then probably be the week. I feel like the 2 I like the best here in a flex spot, CeeDee Lamb, I think you got to stick with him there. You know, he's a set it and forget it starter to me, even if Dallas hasn't been great of late. You know, if he hangs on a couple of those balls last week, like, we're not talking about being worried about him at all. And then Tyler Lockett, I think, coming back, brings you that ceiling. Jalen Waddle, I'm not all the way out on Jalen Waddle, but still I think between Chicago matchup for Tyler Lockett and a Saints matchup for Jalen Waddle, I think Lockett is the more appealing one if we're picking 2.
We're in agreement here. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb averaging 6.6 catches per week over the last 3 weeks, and the Bears have allowed the 2nd most touchdowns, 19, to opposing wide receivers. So yes, We are agreeing there. Let's get one more. It's from Yomoki. They need 2 from Antonio Gibson, Rashad Penny, Darrell Henderson, Devonta Freeman, or Miles Sanders. I'm with you on Gibson, whether he doesn't play or he falls short of these expectations on Monday night. This might be a situation where I'm forced to lean on Rashad Penny, and I don't mind Miles Sanders. I guess if I am being forced to, I think I would choose those 2, but are you seeing this differently?
No, I think those are the 2 most appealing ones, weird enough as it is. Miles Sanders, you know, he's coming off 2 good games. Still, he's like almost is kind of playing like doing a Jacoby Myers cosplay where he's getting a ton of rushing work, getting a ton of rushing production, but just can't seem to find the end zone. Maybe he gets that right this week. I think he's the most appealing guy of this group with Gibson banged up. And then, yeah, I guess let's go back to Rashad Penny. Let's do it.
Shout out to Matt Harmon appeasing the fantasy LARPers watching. All right, let's send it to Andy and Tank for a fantasy face-off.
Ain't no cosplay like Jacoby Myers cosplay. That sounds, well, that's something. It's face-off time. 2 longtime rivals here. It's me, it's Tank Williams. And today we're just going to avoid good teams entirely and debate some fun players on unwatchable offenses. We're going to start at running back. I am a little bit interested in Rashad Penny this week, but Tank, you prefer Michael Carter of the Jets.
I mean, well, you heard how excited Lizzie and Matthias were about Rashad Penny, right? I mean, so, yeah, I mean, if you hear that enthusiasm, I mean, I feel like you'll just naturally gravitate towards Michael Carter. I mean, honestly, I will admit, I hate having 2 Michael Carters on the Jets because I'm like texting Rev like late last night, like, yo, Michael Carter got COVID. Oh, damn, my bad. It's the other Michael Carter. But this Michael Carter is playing. This Michael Carter is the one that's heavily involved in the pass game when he does play. This Michael Carter split carries with Tevin Coleman last week, but I believe that they were just kind of working my boy back in because he had been on the show for a while. So I would expect him to get more touches in the run and pass game. He's going up against the Jags, who, when you think they're in the smash spot against the Texans, they still can't make the layup. So I feel like the Jets and Michael Carter should show well today. And I would much prefer him than Penny, who blew up against the Texans and then looked like a rusty Penny, but getting DJ Dallas stealing touchdowns from him last week.
Yeah, I got nothing bad to say about Michael Carter. He's been a really fun player this year. But I just want to remind people that this game, this matchup against the Bears for Penny right here, this is why you added Penny 2 weeks ago. It wasn't about week 15. It was about this matchup. He is the main guy for Seattle. He's facing Chicago, obviously. The Bears defense allowing over 120 rushing yards per game. They just give up big plays with regularity. What could be more enjoyable than crushing an opponent with Rashad Penny? Chicago, again, just an absolute zombie team right now. And I think Penny is about to go off in the snow. We've got snowy conditions in Seattle. I think this one's going to be fun. Let's see what the people, I believe the people voted on this.
Yeah, I think the people want to see Adrian Peterson against Chicago, actually. Yeah, I think that's what they want.
Seems they do. Well, the people are wrong all the time. Let's not waste our time with what the people have decided on this one. Let's move on to receiver. And talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown against Russell Gage. And it has actually come down to this for many of us. I'll start us off here. I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown. And okay, did I feel a little bit better about this call when I thought Jared Goff was going to play? Yes, I did. Things have taken a little bit of a turn since I agreed to it. But still, Amon-Ra St. Brown has 35 targets in his last 3 games. He's caught 26 of those for 249, a couple of touchdowns. I just feel like the breakout is fully underway here. He's been fantastic. There's no TJ Hawkinson, so he's going to get all these targets coming his way. I think it's another double-digit target week. Granted, they're not going to be Goff targets. That's a little bit of a problem, but I think St. Brown is here. He's arrived. He's already had a couple of signature games, and he's going to finish the season strong. I don't dislike Russell Gage. I can make a very similar argument for Russell Gage, but I'll leave that.
I mean, honestly, I just wanted you to keep talking because, I mean, every time you say that, he's going to get a lot of targets, but it's not coming from Jared Goff. I mean, you just continue to prove my point. I mean, I feel like this is one of those games where he's going against the Falcons, and, I mean, honestly, I just said I don't like Russell Gage as much because Jared Goff isn't playing. I don't feel like that offense is going to be as explosive for the Detroit Lions, and so with Boyle or whoever's going to be throwing the ball to St. Brown, I feel like I don't like his prospects as much as Matt Ryan. Everybody focusing on trying to stop him and that Pro Bowl tight end who really didn't put up Pro Bowl numbers, but yet he's still a Pro Bowl tight end. And so that means Russell Gage is going to get all that space and opportunity to do work. It's not going to be the volume that you're used to seeing or the points that you're used to seeing because the matchup's just not going to be that pretty. But I feel like if I'm looking at Russell Gage and Amon-Ra St. Brown and looking at who's throwing the ball to him, it's going to be Russell Gage in the landslide. Let's see what the people say. Or do we have a poll for that too? Oh yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
The people have really underperformed. People have disappointed, no question about it.
I think the people want you to stay trapped in the closet.
I think they may. We definitely need to regroup right now and grab another break. When we return, we're going to check on some trending topics. And Matt and Minty are going to be talking props.
B, I want the real, B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is the Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free, live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
We are back here on Fantasy Football Live. While you were icing down some game day beverages, we were looking at what's trending. Here are some buzzy names this morning. Cole Kmet, Sony Michel, Jalen Waddle, Justin Jackson. We've talked about nearly all of these guys except Kmet, who is coming off of a 6-catch and 71-yard outing. I will be honest, every time I try to play the Cole Kmet lottery, I always get sniped by Jimmy Graham and his frying pan hands. Andy, let's talk about Kmet, though. No Justin Fields in this one. We got Nick Foles instead. So how are you dealing with Kmet after, a pretty strong outing against Minnesota?
Yeah, Kmet is also one of these guys where you can start him, but you probably shouldn't watch because there's a play or two every week where a ball bounces off Kmet's chest, oftentimes into the arms of a defensive player. It's not always pretty. He is getting volume, but we're down to our third string quarterback for the Bears, right? This is just not a good setup for him. I might mess around with Darnell Mooney today, but there is no other element of the Bears passing game that I would want to be tied to. I've got Kmet buried in the ranks, like around tight end 19, 20. I'm not that interested.
So just for context, I'm assuming you'd take like Jared Cook ahead of Cole Kmet, yes?
Got Cook well ahead of him. Got a whole bunch of guys. Got Albert O well ahead of him. I've got a whole bunch of guys that are available on free agent pools right now ahead of Kmet. I can't do it again. I've tried. It hasn't worked out for me. I've had the exact same experience that you have where I try to plug in Cole Kmet and Jimmy Graham randomly resurfaces, scores a touchdown. So not doing it.
Nothing says winning like scheming Jimmy Graham for touchdowns. Anyway, Tank, you heard Matt and I talk about / debate Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson. What are your feelings about Michel coming off of that 8-carry effort for Henderson versus 18-carry effort for Michel?
Man, I love it because I'm rocking with Sony Michel. I got Sony Michel where I had to pick him up in a league where Derrick Henry went down for me. And man, I mean, it looked a little ugly at first. And I was like, man, why am I just letting this dude just ride away on my roster? But then he totally redeemed himself these past couple of weeks. Like, the dude has been great. Like, he's getting a lot of totes, and Sean McVay has shown that he'll ride that hot hand. And so I'm riding Sony Michel like Seabiscuit, hopefully all the way to a fantasy title. So I love it.
All right. Well, guys, I think that covers the trending players. It's time to get back into the sports book. Minty and Matt are checking in on the latest player props over there. Guys, what are you finding?
Yes, let's dive in. We've got some really good ones to talk about. Minty, it's just such a weird slate of games, obviously, with so much going on here in the NFL. But let's try to give 4 player props that we think can help the people out. Let's go with your first one, which I'm hoping this does not come true. That you are not right about this, but please tell me why you are down on Josh Allen here.
Yeah, so for my player props, I'm going with a pair of Joshes, both of them with last names that could double as first names as well. First one, Josh Allen, under 21.5 pass completions at plus 105. Last time he faced the Patriots, he only completed 15 passes of 30 attempts. Now, New England's defense allowing opposing quarterbacks to complete only 58% of passes, recording some of the fewest, or the most interceptions, and allowing some of the fewest touchdowns. I think Josh Allen is going to have a tough time against the Patriots today, so I like the under for that plus money.
I'm really hoping, again, that you're wrong about this one, Minty, but I never like to disagree with you. Now, one that I really like this week is Kyle Pitts, over 47.5 receiving yards. He's cleared this number in back-to-back games, but more than anything, I think this is the week that Kyle Pitts finally has that big eruption game. Obviously, the matchup is right against the Detroit Lions. Like, we kind of act as if Kyle Pitts, he's having this bad season because he's not scoring touchdowns, and that's true. 1.1% touchdown rate. That is 6th lowest among the top 50 scoring fantasy tight ends. That just says to me that we're going to have some positive regression coming here soon, because the guy is top 5 in targets and yards, and even yards per target among all tight ends this year. I think this is the week where he reminds us that he's one of the most talented players at his position. I think he gets in the end zone, and I think he easily clears this 47.5 receiving yards number.
Yeah, 47.5 is like a sweet spot number because it could really go either way. But facing Detroit today, I mean, that defense is pretty inconsistent. So I think Kyle Pitts could have a pretty big day. My next player prop is going to be on Josh Jacobs, under 3.5 receptions, a little bit juiced at minus 125. But Jacobs has had 4 or more catches in 5 of his last 7 games. But in his last 2 games against the Broncos, he's recorded only 1 reception each. Now, Denver's defense is ranked 7th in fewest passing yards allowed per game, so I can see Derek Carr hand the ball off a little more than not. So I'm going under this number here.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs' receiving workload, always extremely weird, extremely hard to project. It's just a strange development, basically his entire career there with the Raiders. All right, for my last one here, I'm going Justin Jefferson, over on a big number, 82.5 receiving yards. Again, I know that's high. He's been pummeled with volume the last couple of weeks with Adam Thielen out. However, with just a 44% catch rate, I actually think having Thielen back could be good news for Justin Jefferson. He's had 11 catches for 126 yards those 2 games without Adam Thielen. It's been good because he scored twice in fantasy, but like 11 catches for 126 yards, he had 11 catches for like 180 yards the game prior to losing Adam Thielen. So like, he can have this number all on his own. I actually think, again, having Adam Thielen back will allow this offense to move the ball a little better. Teams, especially against the Bears last week, were just like, we're going to bracket Justin Jefferson. He's not going to be the guy that's going to sting us too much. With Thielen back there, I think, again, that's going to erase that pressure on Justin Jefferson. Still going to get a ton of targets, and I think we'll be more efficient with them this week to clear this line.
Yeah, interesting take there. You think that Adam Thielen coming back will allow Kirk Cousins to spread the ball out more. I like it, though. I'll be with you on the over here, even though it is set pretty high at 82.5. But I'm with you, Matt.
set very high for a very highly regarded player, Justin Jefferson. Well, we will be back later, Yahoo Sportsbook Live, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You better come back here because we're going to be covering everything from the prop bets that we like to some of the live bets that are going on as the show will be live. So listen, a lot to talk about. Again, it is a very, very weird week, but we're going to enjoy it. We're going to break it all down. So make sure you come back and send your questions in on social media. We hope to see you later.
All right, for our second over-under, we're looking at the Sunday night game. It's that matchup between Washington and Dallas, and we're talking a little Dak Prescott. Oh, we've set a very modest number here, 19.9 fantasy points in this one, and it's possible that no one with Dak on a roster is still alive in the playoffs after these last few weeks. But just in case, talk about him anyway. Yeah, it's been rough. He doesn't have 300 yards or multiple touchdowns in any of his last three. That's kind of ridiculous. But he's facing Washington. This is a team that allows the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks on the season, the second most wide receiver points. He's got the band back together in the receiving core, right? He's got great weapons. I just refuse to believe that Dak Prescott cannot hit 20 fantasy points, which is not that great of a hurdle against this matchup. This is getting ridiculous for him. So I am taking the over here. Matt, in your stunningly versatile hat, do you agree?
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, Dallas has been one of the most stunningly versatile offenses all season long, right up until the last month or so, where basically it's like, all right, defense, you go ahead and carry us. But you're right, Andy. I'm going over here, too. I think it's just like you watch this offense, and they're just this close. You know, there's a few misses here or there. And like you said, the band is back together in the receiver room. Dalton Schultz is playing really well for this team. Obviously, they've got both backs out there, but are they fully healthy? I just think it's a matter of time until Dak Prescott puts up that game that we're counting on here. And obviously, Washington is the right opponent for it. You know, I think Prescott is still a little bit bothered by that calf injury, but nevertheless, the offensive ecosystem is all still there. He's just got to deliver on it, and we trust him too much as a player to believe that this is not going to happen.
Tank, can we get a sweep?
Yeah. We can get a sweep. You know, this just kind of reminds me of, I don't know why this quote popped in my head, but remember when Tony Romo got hurt, like when he was still playing and Jerry Jones said that he was feeling lower than a crippled cricket's ass? You remember that? Like, I feel like that's how this Cowboys offense is right now. Like, they're about as low as you can get. Like, Jerry Jones said that Dak was in a slump. Then Dak admitted that he was in a slump. Then you have Amari Cooper saying that he feel like he needs to be more involved. Like, Zeke and Tony Pollard have been hurt. Like, this offense has just been a mess. So I feel like a lot of times when things are just really down in the dungeons, like a lot of times we just try to bear them more. I'm buying the damn dip this time. I'm buying the dip, so that means Dak, you need to get off your you-know-what and get this thing rolling, and I believe you do it against a team that, if you're not going to do it against Washington, that give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, I don't know who the hell you're going to do it against, so it better be now. Over.
You heard it, people. Buy the dip on Dak. We've got one more over-under coming up in just a little bit, but right now we're going to send it to Liz for some very special holiday sleepers.
All right, you said it, Andy. Let's get to some sleepers who could do damage for fantasy managers in the playoff semifinals. I'm going to begin by talking up the guy Austin Eckler advised Dawson Knox to scoop off of waivers on this week's episode of Eckler's Edge. You saw it. It's Austin's primary backup, Justin Jackson, when healthy, which is definitely not always. Jackson is a special player with 96th percentile agility. Right now, the former Wildcat is coming off of 10 days of rest and a 99 total yard performance versus Kansas City. You love to see it. Even with Joshua Kelly rotating in, Jackson is a solid bet to rip off some long runs, right? And record top 20 fantasy numbers against a Texan squad that's allowed the most rushing yards, over 2,000 in fact, so far this season. So I like him a lot. He's inside my top 20, flirting with my top 15. Speaking of backup running backs, Ronald Jones, as this show has evidenced, might be the buzziest of the week, but I'm more interested in his teammate, Tyler Johnson's potential. Johnson is a physical player. He excelled in the red area of the field while at Minnesota, posting 13 scores over 13 games in his last year as a Gopher. The second-year wideout recorded a season-high number of snaps and drew a season-high 7 looks after Chris Godwin and Mike Evans exited Week 15 early. This go-around, yes, AB figures to take on the bulk of Godwin's role, while Johnson has a chance to work outside in place of Evans. You're definitely chasing touchdowns with Johnson, but, hold on, but, given an angry Tom Brady and the matchup at Carolina, I think it's likely he finds the end zone. Matt, if you don't mind, let's check back into the chat and find out what the people are chasing.
Yes, the people out there in the chat room, hit us with your good questions, obviously. Some holiday-themed emojis would go a long way. But let's start off with this first one here, because I think this is interesting, Tank. There's a lot of folks out there in the chat room I see that have questions and thoughts about Craig Reynolds, the Detroit Lions running back. Particularly, there's one user, and too much going on in there with your name to read that. They're running back 2 spot. They need Craig Reynolds or Damian Harris. How are we feeling about Craig Reynolds? Like, obviously, no DeAndre Swift, but Jamal Williams is back for this team.
I mean, you stopped me at Damian Harris. I mean, there's no Ramondre Stevenson either, and Damian Harris is active, and we saw what the Patriots were able to do against that Bills run defense, and so I understand that my man Reynolds has been balling, but, like, it is the Detroit Lions. And so, like, I'm going to go with the better team with a guy who's going to get volume and the guy who's already showed it to me umpteen times this year versus a guy who's balled out, you know, a couple games in a row. But he doesn't have his starting quarterback either, so I feel like they're going to just try to stack the box and stop him and make Boyle or whoever's going to be at quarterback for the Lions beat him.
100% agree with you on that one. All right, let's move on to Akshar's question. Do we start Antonio Brown or Stephon Diggs? Look, it's important to address these type of questions. Brown is in a great spot this week, we would think. You know, he's coming off his suspension/injury absence. He's going to just walk right into a big target share there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without Godwin and Mike Evans. But, Tank, is that enough to sit Stephon Diggs, who also should have a great target share in a great, not a great matchup, but he has dusted the Patriots in a previous, at least like last year, obviously. Got open on that one pass last time they played in the windy game, but the ball fluttered in the air. Diggs could erupt here without Gabriel Davis and Cole Beasley there in that Bills wide receiver room.
I mean, yeah, before we learned about the weather in that last Bills-Patriots game, I looked at the Bills likely trying to play the Patriots similar to the way that the Cowboys played them when actually Dak was playing well. CeeDee Lamb had a couple touchdowns. He was able to spread the ball around a lot. They were able to run the ball enough to be effective on offense, and they were able to go up in there and get a win in New England. So I feel like if the Bills are going to have success, Diggs is going to have to be involved. So I can see him having like maybe a low output where it's like, well, that's not low, but like 80, 90 yards receiving, but he can come away with a couple touchdowns and have himself a solid game. The only thing I worry about with AB is that he's had the long break and then he had the suspension. Like, it's been a while since he actually like played in the game. And man, that game condition is a hell of a lot different than like just trying to keep yourself in shape while you're on the sideline. So, I mean, I think AB has a nice setup with all those weapons sitting out. I just don't know how his body's going to hold up trying to play a full game and be that dude with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin on the pine.
You're 100% right. He was even limited in practice this week, potentially trying to get back into shape coming off that injury. Let's take one more here from Jay Bowen Francis, because you sent in all these Christmas tree emojis and a few Santa Clauses. Of course, what a great eye catcher there. Would you play, Tank Williams, would you play James Robinson or Najee Harris? Jay Bowen let us know they've already got Alvin Kamara. I guess that's important to know. Between James Robinson and Najee Harris, who, yikes, if you survived Najee Harris last week, shout out to you. Which one of these two guys do you like better this week?
I mean, I guess we don't know what kind of league it is. I mean, because if it's PPR, then I feel like it gets a little interesting, because with no Freiermuth, I feel like Najee Harris is going to be heavily involved in the pass game, and it's going to be a game where the Pittsburgh Steelers are likely playing from way behind, so he should get peppered with targets. But James Robinson has a hell of a matchup. He's going against the Jets, and they've been one of the friendlier teams two running backs. I don't know how many times he's going to get in the end zone, but you can guarantee that he'll at least get in once, where it may be one of those outings where Najee may have a decent amount of yardage, maybe get some points through receptions, but he may not get in the end zone. So I feel like I probably lean towards James Robinson, but at the same time, I feel like both of these can be decent plays just given the game script likely involved.
Yeah, I really like James Robinson. Workload that he got last week was obviously great with no Urban Meyer. I mean, unbelievable. What a great matchup we're going to get between these number 1 and number 2 picks. What a nightmare game. But the matchup against the Jets is just too juicy, I think, to pass up there for James Robinson. That's probably the direction I would go. But yeah, like Tank says, 2 really good options. All right, we got to step aside here on Fantasy Football Live, take another break. When we come back, we're going to discuss Jalen Waddle's outlook against the Saints defense that's ball and shut out Tom Brady last week. But Ian Book's involved in this game. What a nightmare. All right, we'll talk about it when we come back.
B, I want the real, B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is the Bandwagon. The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed. Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
All right, as promised, our final over-under of the show is on Jalen Waddle against a really tough, intimidating Saints defense on Monday Night Football. We're going to set the line here at 79.5 receiving yards. That is a tight one, but I think I'm going to go slightly over here for Jalen Waddle. The volume has been terrific. His last 6 games, obviously he missed the Dolphins' previous game, being on the COVID list, but in his last 6 games, just one time did he come in under 9 targets. The volume's been incredible. The Saints defense, too, I believe this was mentioned, one of you beautiful people out there mentioned this early in the show, but, Devontae Parker's the guy who's probably going to draw the toughest matchup with Marshawn Lattimore on the outside because he's that perimeter receiver. Jalen Waddle used more over the middle of the field in the slot, like Chris Godwin, who obviously tore his ACL against the Saints defense, unfortunately, last week, but did ring him up for 6 catches before he left. So, again, not expecting a monster game from Waddle, but I think we can get like 80 yards here, Minty. What say you for this line here?
Well, Tua was certainly missing Waddle last week, so of course we'll see him back in the mix today. But in terms of production, I think 80 receiving yards is a little high, so I'm going to go under. He had 2 big games in week 12 and 13, but the Saints can surprise this year and make up for what they lack offensively, defensively, like you said. So I'm going to go under.
Alas, I knew that one was coming. That was no surprise there. But Liz, will you break the tie here for us?
This is a really good line, I have to admit. I've gone back and forth a few times. Matt, you make a really good point about Marshawn Lattimore covering Devontae Parker, but we also know Lattimore is kind of like an up-and-down player, right? Like, if he's got Mike Evans, we know what's going to happen, but does he care as much about Devontae Parker? I'm not so sure. And also, in the 6 games in which Parker and Waddle were both on the field, Waddle was only able to hit 80 yards one time, and that was against the Giants. So when I look at the number 6 ranked pass defense that the Saints have and the yardage, not catch total for Waddle, I'm going to have to say under, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel a 10-catch, 75-yard game coming here for Jalen Waddle. Just break my heart like that. All right, let's throw it to Tank here for his DFS plays of the week.
What it do, baby? It's your boy T-Money coming with my Week 16. Ballers on the budget now. I'm starting off with my man Ben Roethlisberger going against those Kansas City Chiefs. And honestly, if you want to know like the primary reason that he's going to ball out, like I had to choose between Jimmy G and Ben Roethlisberger. I sat Ben Roethlisberger. Jimmy G did what he did, which means that Big Ben's going to ball out. But that being said, like he has a decent matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like the game script is going to be in his favor because we know that Patrick Mahomes is going to come out slinging that thing. So that means Ben going to have to try to chase and follow. He doesn't have all his weapons, no Freiermuth, but he does have Deontay Johnson. I believe he's going to pepper Najee Harris with a lot of targets. And so I feel like it may be ugly, but he'll probably get to a point total that'll satisfy you fantasy managers out there. And then DFS, he's only $26. Now at running back, we're going with Justin Jackson. $12. Like, I understand that we have to worry about maybe Joshua Kelly, like coming in and vulturing a touchdown and doing all that stuff. But at $12, like, even if he just runs for like, say, 70 yards or something and falls into the end zone, like, we Gucci. We real Gucci. And so at $12, like, I feel like this is a layup. Just don't miss the layup. And Justin Jackson, you better not miss the damn layup either. Now at wide receiver, I'm going with that dude AB, $23. Like, I already told you that he's going to have to work himself back into game shape. But at the same time, like, you don't have to do that quick, fast, in a hurry because no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. Like, Tom Brady is coming into this game. Like, this dude gets so damn pissed. Like, if you pick him off in practice, he gets pissed. So let alone being shut out on primetime TV by the Saints divisional game. Like, this dude's going to come out balling no matter who he throwing the damn ball to. And I feel like AB is going to provide enough support for him to get busy along with Gronk. Now, at tight end, I'm going with Tyler Conklin. Like, this dude is a dart throw like most tight ends out there. But if you recall, like, some of the analysis that I given, like, earlier in the year, I really like tight ends against the Rams. And this is going to be a game where the Vikings are going to have to throw the ball around a lot. We know that we're getting Thielen back, but Thielen is also one of those people who's trying to work himself back in the game shape. I feel like the Vikings probably won't overload him. They're going to try their best to take away Justin Jefferson, which means that some of these guys like the tight ends and the slot wide receivers and stuff like that may be the guys that have more open looks and be able to get off in what will potentially be a high-scoring game. So those are my guys, and remember, the T is for the money, and the money is something that you will not have in your damn wallet or your lineup if you do not get these cats in your lineup. Now, producer Dan. Why? Like I said, the fantasy guys hate us, and that's why Matt Harmon's in the front right now. And that's all I really got to say about that. But we have one more week to try to just throw up a tourney lineup and somehow catch him, but it looks like Harmon's going to get his first damn title, and I hate everything about it.
Yeah, I do too. You can still get in on the action in daily fantasy this morning, though, on Yahoo. Our big $1 million Everyone Wins Jingle Baller contest. That sounds like some sort of music festival. Is open, and you are guaranteed to win a cash prize. Guaranteed. First place takes home the ultimate gift with a $100,000 prize. Visit the Daily Fantasy Football lobby and join in on that fun.
We are excited to be joined on the fantasy community segment this week by Tara Victoria. I've been looking forward to having Tara on. You can catch her work at Fantasy Pros, at Fantasy Alarm, at Awesemo, at Dynasty Vipers. Great on podcast, great on Twitter. Follow her at It's Tara Time. Tara, welcome. Thanks for being part of this.
Thank you for having me.
You're a Clemson fan, do I have that right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Tell me about the history there, first of all.
Yeah, so I'm in Houston right now, but I'm originally from South Carolina. I grew up literally 20 minutes down the road from Clemson, went to Clemson football games, went to Clemson. So I'm probably as diehard Clemson as one can be. Went through the struggle years there with Tommy Bowden as well. But yeah, massive Clemson fan.
Tell me then about your perspective on Trevor Lawrence, who right now has thrown exactly one touchdown pass in his last 7 weeks, which is just not a thing that we see in 2021, right? Like that might have been normal in like 1979. It is not normal now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that that's happening. I have faith that he is going to get a touchdown against the Jets. I feel like if there's an ideal matchup, it can happen there. But I feel so bad for Trevor. It's hard to overcome coming into the league with, arguably one of the worst coaches in the NFL in very recent history, and maybe a little bit longer.
I don't think that's even an argument anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much decided.
Yeah, because even if there's like maybe a little bit of edge on coaching over somebody, like maybe an Adam Gase or something, just the negativity in the environment, I can't imagine being in that. Trevor's a resilient guy. If they get a good coach in there, change the environment, able to actually work with him, develop him, I think he can overcome it. So yeah, let's say touchdown against the Jets, and positive vibes for the future.
Clemson is obviously a wide receiver factory, has been for a long time. Fantasy managers all know this. Did you realize all along that Hunter Renfrow was going to be easily the greatest Clemson receiver of all time, and no one would ever be close?
Yes. So the thing about Hunter is it's so funny. In college, Clemson fans knew this, and I don't know why anyone, why other teams maybe didn't key in on it, but we always knew if there was a fourth down, if you needed a key catch, we knew exactly where it was going to. It was going to Hunter Renfrow. Funny story, actually. I had my first son on that first national championship game day, literally hours before. So I got to watch Renfrow catch that touchdown, that amazing touchdown, in the hospital with the 4-hour-old baby. So yeah, it was kind of crazy. But I mean, we've got a running joke on my Dynasty Vipers podcast. Anyone brings up Hunter Renfrow, and I immediately say best route runner in the league, because I wholeheartedly believe it. He's fantastic. It always shined through for me. I'm really happy to see his success.
Before we go, give me your favorite waiver ad for Week 16.
So my favorite waiver ad and my top waiver ad are two different things. My top one is obviously Ronald Jones, but my favorite one, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. I really am loving what I'm seeing with him. He's got 26 receptions on 35 targets over the past 3 weeks. And I feel like the connection there between him and Goff is just really pulling through. And, if they continue to do this throughout the remainder of the season and carrying in, I think he's, really someone that can kind of benefit you moving forward for the rest of the playoffs. So he's definitely someone that I'm very high on grabbing this week.
I love it. I fully endorse it. He's a wide receiver too for me this week as well. It is the right answer. If you're looking for a bunch of other right answers, please, again, follow her at It's Tara Time on Twitter. Tara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get back to more of your questions now. Our first one comes from Rachel. Rachel has a question about wide receivers, Antonio Brown, Jamar Chase, or Terry McLaurin, looking for her wide receiver too. Tank, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. You made a great case about Antonio Brown working his way back to game shape. You've also talked up Terry McLaurin. So assuming you're on Chase, which of the other two between Brown and McLaurin would you want?
Yeah, so I have to choose between two out of these three. I think, obviously, my number one is going to be Jamar Chase. I understand that a lot of times teams go in with different game plans when they play a team twice, like these divisional games. But the game that Jamar Chase had, and the defensive coordinator coming out saying that he's not going to treat Jamar Chase like Devontae Adams, and he's not going to treat Joe Burrow like Aaron Rodgers, where they're going to just single him up. I feel like they're going to go out on a mission to try to get Jamar Chase involved today. And if I have to look at the second wide receiver that I'm going to play in that Washington offense has just seemed to struggle. I like the narrative of Tom Brady coming out pissed off, going back to AB, going to Gronk, trying to win a division title against those Carolina Panthers, trying to secure whatever high slot they can in the playoffs. So I'm going with AB. I'm going with Jamar Chase, and I feel really damn good about it.
You should. All right, next question is from Chris. Chris wants to know if he should start Hunter Renfrow or Justin Jackson. I hope there's an element of PPR in this league, but Andy, are you taking the wide receiver or the backup running back?
Yeah, if it's full PPR, I think I'd go Hunter Renfrow here. If it is anything else, I would go Justin Jackson. Again, I think the endorsement that he got from Austin Eckler earlier in the show in Eckler's Edge was pretty incredible and speaks to the fact that he is really the plan B there. He's a good player too. He's obviously not at Eckler's level, but once they get inside the 5-yard line, they trust him. Pretty shifty back. So I think I would lean Justin Jackson almost anywhere except for full PPR.
All right, Minty, this next question is for you. It's about a matchup with a line that has moved since this question was asked. The Lions or the Falcons now at 7.5. Who covers?
Well, I like this game to be pretty high scoring as neither of them are that good defensively. I'm definitely staying away from this one, but in terms of who covers, I would lean the Falcons just because they have the more competent quarterback, but I really would not touch this game.
Okay, Matt, this next one is for you. I'm going to ask you another CEH question, see if he can work his way into one of these lineups you answer questions about. It's from Jace. CEH, Amon-Ra St. Brown with the phenomenal Ian Book throwing the ball, or Damian Harris coming back from that hamstring issue. No Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, at the flex, and there is PPR.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable playing St. Brown at all with Tim Boyle back there. I mean, the role is still great, and the volume's been great. He would be the guy typically there that I would play, but unfortunately can't do it there. Between the two running backs, I do think, Liz, I'm going to work CEH in right here. I think this matchup is great for CEH. I think, like, especially $17 in our daily fantasy game, you love to see that too. I think the value's right for CEH. Like, never do I feel comfortable projecting a big ceiling for him. But the Steelers, since week 10, are 32nd in EPA per rush attempt allowed. Like, their run defense has legit been not good. I mean, in that slop fest with the Titans last week, the only guy who hits the ceiling is freaking Donta Foreman. Give me a break. I think CEH can get off for a pretty decent game here. I have him just ranked slightly ahead of Damian Harris.
I love it, Matt. In fact, I appreciate you so much for helping me work through the backup running backs. It was Tim Boyle, not Ian Book. Ian Book obviously starting in replacement of Taysom Hill. But I'm going to have you answer another question because I think we're vibing here. This one's from Chris. Cordero Patterson, Russell Gage, another Falcon, DJ Moore dealing with the hamstring issue, full PPR, and I think I know where you're going to go, but say it out loud for the people.
What a reward! What a reward for our good vibes there, Liz. Appreciate it. I don't know why this is like the all NFC South fantasy league here, but I'm going back to CPAT, and I say this. Listen, I know I shouldn't complain too much about my daily fantasy troubles, considering I was #1 on our leaderboard there. But I never played Cordero Patterson like all year in daily fantasy except last week, so I understand you're feeling a little burnt after what happened last week, but. Great matchup against the Lions. Still a very important part of that offense. I am going to go with Cordero Patterson, who, of course, still has a very juicy role there for the Falcons over these two receivers. Definitely not playing DJ Moore. My God, enough already with these Panthers.
Oh, man. A very awesome low-key flex, by the way. Well done, Matt. 2 in a row. We have to take another break here on Fantasy Football Live. But when we come back, Minty and I run through her best bets for Week 16. Don't go away.
B, I want the real, B.
I feel like I'm a starter. Everybody feel like I'm a starter.
If you don't know me, feel free to judge.
People always ask, will Kevin Love go back to Portland?
If I was wearing a Portland jersey, I mean, that's special. That's playing at home.
Did you talk to LeBron?
We never really talked about those battles. We moved forward from that.
There's some lines that even ambassadors shouldn't cross.
And then there's the load management.
How you feel about that, Dr. J?
I'm Hannah Kaiser, and this is the Bandwagon.
Yeah,
The best way to watch baseball is with an unnecessarily masochistic level of emotional investment. Check out these dance moves. Ohtani unleashed.
Yeah.
Aliens, fan. I don't know if they're watching. Huge fan. It was a socially distanced first pitch. He looks like a female superhero. This week on Humble Proposal, Jason Benetti, Jeff Passan, Shane Bieber. Every morning I wake up and I look at the standings and I'm like, who's out of the running? Nobody. Only the Pirates.
When I'm decorating a space, I'm constantly shopping, even on Yahoo Mail.
Oh, it's so perfect.
Finding the right piece really brings it all together.
Watch free, live football. The NFL is on your phone all season long. Watch the NFL live on the Yahoo Sports mobile app.
And we're back here on Fantasy Football Live. 8 games kicking off in just about 15 minutes. Let's recap the top actives and inactives this morning. Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce did not clear COVID protocols and will not suit up this afternoon against Pittsburgh. After missing the last 2 games with an ankle injury, Adam Thielen is set to return for Minnesota. Patriots running back Damian Harris is also returning today against Buffalo. Remember, he torched the Bills for 111 yards in Week 13. And finally, Washington is hopeful running back Antonio Gibson will be able to go tonight against Dallas. Ian Rappaport is reporting he is a game-time decision with that toe injury. All right, Minty, it's time for you and me to debate your best bets for this week. What do you have?
All right, first up is the Steelers and Chiefs under 45. Now, I hate betting totals and I hate betting unders, but I really like this one. That Kansas City defense has improved immensely in the past 2 months. They've held their opponents to 20 or fewer points in 7 of their last 9 games. And we know Pittsburgh's offense isn't capable of scoring a crazy amount of points because Big Ben isn't doing so hot this season. But on the road, Pittsburgh is one of the best under teams I've ever seen. So I love the under, and I also love the Steelers to cover 10 points because that is just a steal, and it is criminal that they're making the Steelers this big of an underdog. But my best bet for this one is the under.
Yeah, this one is interesting. You know, I looked at the implied team totals, and even without Travis Kelce in the lineup, the Chiefs are still sitting at 28. The Steelers are sitting at 18. That's 46, so you would think the over. I think also, though, the people are still imagining this offensive powerhouse that Kansas City has been known for, but the matchup, something Matt says all the time against the Steelers, leads me to believe they're going to be dragged down into the muck because, again, I'm going to give Matt credit for making this note. The Steelers are the team that draws you down into it and makes you fight for it. Plus, we know when Chris Jones is in the lineup and being used effectively where he belongs on the inside, the Chiefs this iteration of the Chiefs at least, tend to lean on the defense. So I too am going to say under.
Okay, I like it. Well, for Sunday night football, we've got the Cowboys and the Washington football team. I'm doing it again. I'm betting on the Cowboys -9 here. Dallas's defense leads the league in interceptions. They're allowing their opposing quarterbacks to complete only 59% of passes, and they've gotten much more rest than Washington. So the advantage goes to Dallas here. The Cowboys are 6-3 against the spread, their last 9 against the football team.
I really don't like this one, not just because it's a double-digit spread, but because the Washington football team has been so gritty, and I do think their season is this game, right? Like, this is it for them. However, Dak is so much better at home than on the road. I mean, his stats, he has a QB rating of 115.3 at home, 86.6 on the road. His interceptions are wildly different when away versus in Dallas. Plus, the defense in Dallas rated number 3 in total DVOA. So I am going to, it's going to break my husband's heart, but I too am going to have to agree with you and think that the Cowboys can cover.
Yeah, I don't like it either. But moving on to Monday Night Football, we've got the Dolphins and the Saints, and this line certainly flipped. The Dolphins were 3-point underdogs when this line first opened, but of course the announcement of Ian Book as the starter for New Orleans, there was certainly more value in taking the Dolphins earlier in the week, but in these times we just can't bet early in the week. Anyway, Miami struggles to defend through the air, but they're great at pressuring their opposing quarterbacks. I think they will be able to cause some turnovers with Book here in his first regular season start. But I think this is going to be a 1-point game, so that's why I'm just going to bet on the Dolphins to win on the money line at -140 here instead of worrying about the spread. But yeah, I like the Dolphins over the Saints here.
I think that's sound advice. I think we're going to agree on all 3 of these. You know, I think there's some hesitancy because Tua did not look great, obviously, last week. And also, you know, when you look at the opponents that the Dolphins have faced over this win streak, they're all pretty much tomato cans. Here's the thing, though. We're talking up the Saints defense a bunch, but they're going to be without all-pro linebacker Demario Davis, and I think that's really, really key. So it's not just Ian Book or even Ryan Ramczyk, by the way, the right tackle, that's going to make a bunch of disasters. I also think that, like, defensively, the Saints won't be able to do everything they want to do against Tua. So I agree. I don't want to mess with the spread, but I do think the Dolphins will come out victorious once again in this matchup.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be a really low-scoring game, too. I mean, 37.5 is one of the lowest totals we've seen this week. So it's going to be an ugly one, but hopefully the Dolphins come out with a win here.
All right, hopefully. And let's hope things aren't too ugly for you guys. There is some time to adjust those lineups still. So let's get to our fantasy freebies. Andy, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, it's fantasy freebie time. We're talking about players that are started in fewer than 25% of Yahoo leagues who we think might be able to help you this week. Matt Harmon, start us off.
Yeah, no Brandon Cooks this week for the Houston Texans. He's on the COVID list. I think that Nico Collins kind of makes an interesting play this week if you are ultra desperate. And I mean, if you're this desperate and you're waiting till 9:50 Pacific to adjust your lineup, I don't know what you're doing here. But if you are, maybe you can play Nico Collins, a guy who is, of course, also the stone minimum in our daily fantasy game. 65 routes over the last 2 weeks, second on the team. Obviously, to Brandon Cooks. He is the number 2 receiver there for Houston, but more importantly, 14 targets over that span. I mean, they're starting to get him more involved. I kind of think Nico Collins can play a little bit too. Obviously, we typically think that when you're going against the Chargers, you're going to target them with running backs more often than in the passing. But remember, Joey Bosa on the COVID list. This is a team that can be beat overall defensively. They've kind of been an up and down unit even as a pass defense all year. So if you are truly desperate, I think Nico Collins can give you a pretty good game this week.
Tank, you like somebody involved in the same game. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Jared Cook, and I understand that he's rostered in a little bit over 25% of fantasy rosters, but I think he's worth talking about just because I know people who drafted him, expected him to ball in that Chargers offense have probably been frustrated as hell. But, I mean, it's good to hear that Donald Parham, I mean, he's on IR, but he's recovering from that, vicious injury that we saw where he hit his head against the ground in L.A. But that opened up a lot of targets for Jared Cook. And one thing that we've seen is that Justin Herbert loves to target his tight ends in the red zone. We just never knew if it was going to be Cook or Parham, but now we know that's going to be Cook. He has a really good matchup against the Houston Texans that give up the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends. And so I feel like if you've been waiting all damn year to play Jared Cook, here's your spot. Don't blow it.
Yeah, I'm looking at Emmanuel Sanders this week. He's facing New England. Obviously, Sanders coming back from the knee injury. Carries no injury designation this week, which I think is a good sign. He is needed desperately because Buffalo is going to be without Cole Beasley, without Gabriel Davis. Gabe Davis had been so good lately, too. So there's a lot of targets available here in this Buffalo offense. No, the matchup is not ideal against New England. I'll give you that. But Sanders is looking at maybe 8 targets in this thing. Let's try to remember back to the first 2 months of this season when Emmanuel Sanders was seeing like 6 to 8 targets a week, and they were high yield, downfield opportunities. So we're talking maybe 8 to 10 targets, and not just any targets. These are Josh Allen targets in a game where I think probably New England focuses on Stephon Diggs, and there are opportunities for Sanders, opportunities for Dawson Knox. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So I think Sanders, a strong play here. Okay, those are your fantasy freebies. Now, let's see what kind of gibberish Matt's people are talking this week in the Survival Kit.
Don't talk about Matt's people like that.
It's the holiday season, okay? Christmas is upon us. It's the season of gift giving, and that's what we're going to do here today. In order to show our gratitude to all these players out there that give so much to this game so we can enjoy this stupid little hobby called fantasy football, we asked you people, the people, my people, if you could give a gift to an NFL player this holiday season, who would it be and why? Let's jump right into it, starting most importantly with this one. Yes, oh man, I would love to give the gift of healing to Chris Godwin. What a bummer to lose this guy in Week 15. I mean, he's one of the best young receivers in the NFL right now. He does everything for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's Tom Brady's go-to guy over the middle. He makes big explosive plays. He's clutching the red zone, and he blocks his ass off for this team too. I mean, he's a huge loss for the Bucs down the stretch. It was a huge loss on several of my fantasy teams as well. So yes, I'd love to give the gift of healing to Chris Godwin so that he can go into free agency, make all the money that he deserves, and get back and playing ball next year because I absolutely just love watching this guy. All right, next one up. Yeah, Michael, if anybody deserves the gift of a good offensive line, it's Najee Harris. I mean, unbelievable that this guy has been as good as he's been in fantasy this year and been as inefficient as he has been as a runner, all because mostly he's playing in a really bad ecosystem. I mean, Najee Harris, what a brutal finish last week. horrible end to his fantasy season. I mean, he can obviously, if you didn't get bounced by him last week, he can bring it back here in week 16, maybe. I would love to give him this gift so that next year we can see the fully formed Najee Harris. We can see him at the height of his powers. Excellent gift, Michael. We love it. Let's get this for him. I mean, sooner than later. And yeah, I would love to be able to give the gift of a time machine to Trevor Lawrence so that he can go back in time and not get drafted by the Jaguars. I mean, unbelievable. I know Urban Meyer has been fired. I know that it's like ancient history, or like they'd love it to be ancient history at this point, but what a failure. I mean, Jaguars, you got the thing. You got the golden goose, the one thing that everybody in the NFL wants, the young, transformative franchise quarterback, the guy who could be a potential once-in-a-generation prospect at that position, and you give him Urban Meyer, you basically waste the entire first year of his career. It's disgusting. And honestly, because the gift of a time machine, last I checked, those are not real. Those are impossible to give. I would love to give the gift of common frickin' sense to the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can't mess this up again, all right? It's on you. It's your duty to Trevor Lawrence, to your fans, to all the other players on your roster, and frankly, to the NFL community in general, not to screw this thing up. So, with that gift of common sense, you better go hire the right coach. You better build the right culture around him, because if you fail Trevor Lawrence, I don't think we can ever forgive you. Even in the holiday spirit here, I'm going to say we'll just never forgive you. We'll never let that one go.
All right, we are just moments away from kickoff, so let's get to as many social media questions as we can. And let's start with Mike, who has a question about defenses. Bills at New England or Jags at the Jets. Tank, you played defense in the NFL for New England, by the way. So tell me, which of these defenses are you taking?
Well, after the Patriots ran down the Bills' throat in the game where the Bills knew what they were going to do and couldn't stop them regardless, like, I'm not going with the Bills, even though I don't expect that game to play out the exact same way this go around. Damn it. Yeah, the Jets and Jags are both bad. I mean, it's kind of like that game where the Texans played the Dolphins, where both teams were bad. They ended up having 9 total turnovers in the game, so both defenses ended up doing it well for you. So I'll go with the ugly game, the nasty game where both quarterbacks are unlikely to turn the ball over. Yeah, so yeah, go with the Jags or the Jets. Either one should work.
Tank, unsurprisingly, going nasty with his choice. Okay, Seth is our next tweet. Russell Wilson and Lockett in the snow, or Matt Ryan with Russell Gage versus Detroit. Hey, Andy, why don't you put a little shine on this one?
Oh, I just hate this question. I've got a league in which it's like my best team too, and I had Lamar Jackson, and so I pivoted to Taysom Hill, and then I had to pivot to Justin Fields, and then I had to pivot to Huntley, and now I have finally pivoted to Matt Ryan. So Matt Ryan is something that I am doing this week against Detroit. I hope that's the right answer. I fear it is not. The problem with Russell Wilson is he's just sort of become a guy who never runs the ball anymore, right? He's only averaging about 14 rushing yards per game, and now he's only throwing a couple of touchdown passes per week. So let's do it. Let's go with Matt Ryan. Let's hope that what I need is also what you need.
Let's do it indeed. Minty, put those listening ears on, because this next question is for you. It's from Don. Rams giving 3 has got to be a lock, right?
I actually have the Vikings plus 3.5, and for them to win straight up at plus 150. Now, the Rams, they're coming off a short week. They're on the road, and the Vikings, they're not a team that gets blown out. So I always push back on betting on the Vikings, but I actually really, really like them in this spot, and I like them to upset the Rams today.
All right, this next question is going to you, Matt. It is from Jeff, Full Point PPR, Daryl Henderson, Sony Michel, Mike Gesicki, or Michael Carter. We heard Carter talked up a little bit earlier in the face-off by Tank. Which player of these 4 are you flexing?
Hashtag never Jets. Yeah, we don't mess around with Michael Carter if we don't have to, and I don't think we have to here with Sony Michel on the roster. Listen, again, I think Michel has established himself as the 1A back here. I could be wrong. Sean McVay could, pull the rug out from under me. That'd be great, since, again, Sony Michel's like the best running back on one of my championship teams right now. But nevertheless, I do think he's a good play here. Good matchup against the Vikings. This game could be high scoring, and Michel is actually 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards over the last 3 weeks, but he scored just 1 touchdown. So maybe he finds the box here today against the Vikings.
All right, this last question is going to do it, and I'm going to send it to you, Tank, as our resident Jaguars fan. James Robinson at the Jets or Alexander Mattison subbing in for Dalvin Cook? Obviously, he was on the COVID list versus the Rams, and this is a flex spot.
Man, it seems like I always get questions with dudes that burn me. I remember Alexander Mattison was starting a couple games back, and I was like, he's that Marshawn Lynch play where, you know why I'm here, and then he didn't do a damn thing while he was there. So I'm going with James Robinson in that layup of a matchup against that Jets run defense. And he gonna probably blow it for me too, but oh well. Fantasy guys, here's to you.
Cheers, and way to end on a positive note. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Fantasy Football Live. Thanks for kicking off your Sunday with us. Don't forget, you can find us on the Fantasy Football Forecast. That's our daily podcast. You can also find us every day on Mad Bets. Plus, Matt and Minty will be back in just about 90 minutes with, actually, Matt's going to be back with Ariel Epstein on Yahoo Sportsbook Live. And finally, we'll see you back here next Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Pacific for Championship Week. Please return. And that'll also be our season finale. Good luck to all your fantasy teams in Week 16, and happy holidays.